And
Hi, everybody. This is Mike and Mary from Mike Metco Meetups. And after a little bit of technical rigmarole, we finally got it started. I'm actually on Rod's stream right now. He was gracious enough to uh, take over, and with the recording, I'm having a little trouble with StreamYard. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I'm on my phone, and Mary and Rod are in normal mode, but we'll go from there. All right. So enough of the past. I want to take this opportunity to invite Rod onto the stream. Now we finally cornered him. You know, Rod is, I think, the busiest man in Hollywood these days. I mean, actually, we had tried to schedule him when we had Kat on a couple of weeks ago, but he was busy, and I understand
yeah,
that. So he was gracious enough to say, "Look, anytime you want, we'll do it." And we set it up for today, and it looked like today wasn't even going to go down. But anyway, yeah. So
yeah,
Rod is very busy. In addition to having like a real strong, reselling business. I really admire him for all the work that he puts in, and how well he does picking and punching, and all of his YouTube activity. I think you probably have like more channels than Dave does at this point, right? You got picking and punching, you got picking and punching cards, you got flipping and punching. Well, that's been a little inactive. You haven't
yeah.
done one of those in about a couple of months.
No, probably I haven't probably posted in there about a month, and then I do with Kat on Tuesday nights. I'm part of her podcast.
Right, and
Um,
then you do the Bangers podcast
No Banger
as
Sports,
well.
sports card podcast with Carrie American Arbitrage Cards and Tim Over the Years Sports.
Right.
Do that. So technically, I mean, I have 4 YouTube channels, but I'm on with
You're on,
Kat, so technically
you're on
5. I guess
five
you
or
could say
six,
with
yeah.
that. But yeah, hopefully I'll be getting back to my flipping and punching. It's just one of those things. I'm a one man show.
Yeah.
I can only do
No,
so much, and
I admire you.
yeah.
You're doing well. And in addition to that, you have a very active live selling career on Dibdit, and you're one of the principals as well. I think you're one of the owners on Dibdit Cards, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
and
I'm
on
on.
Threads also.
Yes, sir. Yep, I'm on
Threads.
both. Do that. So that's part of my main focus. I do a lot of live selling on there, and then I dabble and whatnot occasionally. Like once a week, still on there for cards. I've gotten so much inventory with sports cards where I kind of have to diversify and do that. But hopefully, the goal as we grow debit cards that I'll transition more just debit cards only. But until then, it's a work in progress.
Sounds good. So, all right. So, I just want to say one thing. Rod holds a special affection in my heart. I told the story a million times, so I won't tell it again. I'm sure Rod's sick of hearing it, but he was really one of the people who was really responsible for giving me the initiative to step in front of the camera and be a YouTube host like the rest of us. So I'm really grateful to him for that. And I'll just leave it at that. So thank you very much. So without any further ado, why don't we just give Rod the floor, and why don't you tell us a little bit about you, how you started, and what what's going on.
I was going to say, you pretty much said
Yeah, pretty
told my
much told
story
you.
for me.
I
So
probably
yeah,
told you the
but
story, right?
well, first and foremost, I want to apologize because I really want to come on here with Kat and help support you guys because I love both you guys and what you guys do here. But unfortunately, my wife got hurt at work, and at that time, I had to help her. She's going through work comp, and she had a bunch of doctor's appointments, and we thought she was going to have a quick return, but that ended up turning to be over a month later. So that kind of threw me for a little loop. Also, kind of reason why I had to put my flipping and punching channel on the back burner for right now, just for the fact that unfortunately, and like I said, there's not enough hours in the day, and I had to take care of the family situation. And out of all my channels, that was the one that had to be put in the back burner. But now I'm so very unique, I guess you say, in the reselling community because I'm actually a 3rd generation picker. So I grew up. My grandmother volunteered at a local church thrift store. And then my grandfather and my grandmother would go to garage sales. They would pick stuff up, and then they would set up at the flea market on the weekends. So, I kind of get a taste of growing up, just going to flea markets and go to garage sales. My dad has a hauling and tree service business for the longest time. He's retired pretty much now, but we would clear out, estates, houses. I can't tell you how many people die that don't have next of kin. So, he had a deal with a couple of lawyers' offices, and they would hire us to come in. We would clear out the house. So I got to learn how to, just get a good eye for stuff along the way. And then my dad would take a lot of the stuff either to the city dump, or he would, keep in his garage, set up a yard sale or sell it, or he would take stuff to a local auction, and he did that. So I kind of got the gist of the whole reselling industry, as a kid growing up. So I started flipping sports cards, kind of reason why I brought back picking and punching cards as a kid growing up. And then, I kind of, as a lot of people do, I found that girls were more important to me than cards as I got older. So I put that on.
Girl.
Yep. So I put that on the back burner there for a while. And now, as I'm older now, it's a way for me to rekindle my love for sports cards. And, it's a good way for me to connect with me and my dad used to open a lot of cards. Me and my brother would open cards. So now when my brother comes to visit, we, my dad, we sit around, have a couple of beers and just open a bunch of cards. It's a lot of fun.
Sounds good. That explains a lot, Rod, because I know that your main niche is cards, and you really know you really are an expert. I mean, I'm just admire how much you really know.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm learning. I'm getting forced over the fire hose. So getting back into it, I would say it's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I jumped in the deep end, getting back into it. So, I mean, I'm still learning, and I think anyone, just like any picker, you're still going to keep learning along the way.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no doubt. But what I was going to say is that in addition to knowing about cars, you have such an eye for everything, and I didn't realize you had such a deep background, third generation, and I know you've been reselling for like over 20 years, specifically, but you have more of a background than that, so that's how you really developed your eye, because you have a feel for, like, a lot of other categories, like toys and all, and I watch all the picking channels, and you go out to the flea markets, and you just amazing how just where to tune into what particular item and do well, and you're a good picker. That's really what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would say, growing up, going through, like, I just picked what I loved, sports cards, toys, pop culture items. That's kind of what I specialize in. And over the years, you just adapt and change.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I started actually watching some YouTube, expanding my knowledge, and I realized that I was going to all these yard sales and flea markets, and I would just power through these sales. I would go 5-10 sales and not buy anything because of the fact that I was just looking for specific items. So I realized how much money I was leaving on the table.
Yeah.
So knowledge is power. So once I started expanding my knowledge, it was little by little. I was just finding items I could buy and sell, make a profit, and then I just went from there. So that's kind of how I kind of started expanding out. But funny thing is ironically, I was such a bad student growing up. I was a C student, so bad. I hated learning. I hated it. But when it comes to functional learning, now I'm a human sponge. Like, I can literally learn for 15, 20 hours a day because I truly love what I'm doing. So it's one of those things that it's so true that you got to find your passion and then just follow it.
I remember those words. I just specifically remember those words because that was basically what you told me to kind of light a fire under my butt in starting this channel.
Well, you do so much for the community, and here's the thing is, like, we're reselling, you have good people, you have bad people, and majority of people are great in this community, but there's a lot of people that are good, that are great, that aren't in the limelight. And then I'm not saying like being in the limelight, anything special like that. I'm just saying is like being on YouTube where you're able to connect more with more of the community, with other resellers.
Yeah.
And at this point in time in your life, you started traveling to all these different, meetups and stuff like that. And it just made sense, and then bring Mary on. Mary's great. Like, bring her on. She adds such a bubbly, like, personality to it. So it's like a perfect combination for you two.
Yeah, I agree. I think so.
Well, thank you, and we love you too, and we are so glad that you were able to come on with us. I was looking forward to this.
Absolutely, I wouldn't miss in the world. You guys do a lot for the community, and I want to make sure I can help support you guys because you guys are always trying to support everyone else. That's what it's all about in this community.
Yeah, that's what we do. We all do it.
Absolutely there. So,
can you tell us a little bit about your career before you started reselling? And I would like to know the coolest story that you have regarding your previous career, and then also how you transitioned into reselling.
Sure. So I never technically stopped reselling over the years. It's something that it's like everyone has that relationship where you break up, you come back, that one person that you always maybe like, you always kind of cross paths one way or another. It could be good, could be bad for one reason or another. And that's kind of my relationship with the reselling, where, even though I stopped doing card stuff, well, when I went to college, I was selling stuff on the side just for beer money and to, to go out as a broke college student. And then I would stop a little bit. And then when I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida, to help support myself through, I ended up transferring schools I played college football up there. And then I ended up transferring down to Florida, and I stopped playing football. And then I had to find a way to kind of support myself, being out of state. So I, got back into reselling. So I was doing that for a while, but then over the years I kind of stopped, came back to it. So I have such a weird story here, but at one point in time, I went back to school, graduated. I was on tour with a professional MMA company for a while. A lot of people don't know that. I was director of marketing. So I was on tour for that. When I started with the company, they actually recruited me to come with them because in the Tampa Bay area, they started this company, and they had a massive show in the Tampa Bay area, and they were looking for someone to help promote their show locally. Well, I was running bar promotional events, and I ran one of the biggest beer pong tournaments in the country called, it was Tuesday nights at the Hangout in South Florida down here, the University of South Florida. And I would run a beer pong tournament, and I called it Irish Tuesdays. And I had to deal with Budweiser, where I get green beer every Tuesday night. And we would have a double elimination beer pong tournament. And we would have up to sometimes 60 to 70 teams playing every single week. So it was like a big event for us down here. And what ended up happening is one of the interns from Time Magazine would come to my events because she lived in Tampa. And then someone in Vegas started the World Series of beer pong. And then what ended up happening is she said, "Oh, I know someone who does beer pong events in Tampa." So they actually flew out and filmed our beer pong event, took pictures and stuff like that. So they didn't mention me by name in the article, but they mentioned the bar and being there as part of the article. So yeah, and I think it was 2009. I think 2009 we had an article in Time Magazine for doing beer pong and stuff like that. But because of that, the local fight company, one of the guys working from there knew the bar owner. They recommended me, so we kind of met, and I helped them with their street team, pass out flyers, do other stuff. And then they signed a deal with HDNet, which was owned by Mark Cuban at the time. And we started doing live MMA events on there. From there, they brought me on a salary base, and I started traveling. So I dropped out of college, and I started traveling with a professional MMA company for a while. Wild ride, let me tell you, just going there. So that was super cool. I got to do that. Got to travel to a lot of states. They flew me over to Greece. We did a show in Greece.
Wow.
And I'll tell you, two events are crazy. One is I was in Nashville for the event called Strike Force. They were on CBS, and I was backstage with that event. And that's when a fight broke out in the cage after the event. And they ended up that MMA company ended up losing their TV deal with CBS that time. So that was a wild night. I was there for that. And then when we flew over to Greece, we did this show over there. They never had a professional MMA event. So one of the it's called I think it's Kratos Casino over there. It's what we call a paid show. So they would pay us to come over, bring all the fighter stuff, and they pay us an X amount of dollars. So they don't worry about ticket sales, stuff like that. A reason why casinos do that is they want to get people to come to the casino to spend money at the shows. So the crazy thing is, though, once we flew over there, we got there. Probably the second or third day, the newspaper posted these very horrible articles about MMA, mixed martial arts. Because I don't know if you guys remember when the UFC first started, Senator John McCain at the time had a campaign called it human cockfighting at one time, and the UFC was actually banned in the US for a while because they had open weight class. Then they made it more like boxing. They put weight classes in. They did that, and then it was allowed back in the States. But depending on certain countries you go to, they don't, it's still new to them because mixed martial arts has only been around, like a UFC type of MMA fighting has only been around since the early 90s on a big national professional level. So as we're there, the day before the event, we get notice that all these big, huge guys, and I'm talking they must be 6'3", 6'5", all wearing black shirts, black pants, about 10 to 15 of them just randomly show up to the casino. We're down by the cage area, and they all stand around the whole cage area. And I was like, "What's going on?" They're like, "The government's shutting us down right now. They sent these." So I'm in a foreign country with all these big, huge guys just surrounding the ring, and they said that if we perform the show, they're going to arrest every single one of us. So there I am in Greece, think I'm going to jail because we're trying to put on this MMA show. And we were literally, the best way I can describe this is, do you know when people say, hey, you're on death row and the only way you can get saved is like the governor has to call? So I forget what they called me, the prime minister of at that time, or the president. He was the only one that could call the local police and stuff and call it off. So on like the day of the actual event, we still did not know if we're going to be able to go through with the show. And then they made a phone call, we got it approved, and then we got to do the show. So we got to do a show there. It was great. They had a bunch of local people there. Great entertainment. Unfortunately, one of the fights, someone dislocated their ankle. So of course, the next morning on the front page was someone that showed the ankle like that, and like guy got dislocated. But that was a really cool experience. So that was a wild experience there. That was one of them there. And then after that, unfortunately, a member of the company, one of the financial backers, was involved in a Ponzi scheme, froze all the government assets, and I was out of a job. And I decided to go back to college at that time. And, so which sucked was that was very devastating for me because I stopped reselling. I was following a dream on tour, with this MMA company. I thought this had my dream job, got to travel, got to do all this stuff. So I went back to school and got my degree in marketing. And then I started just bouncing around a couple of different jobs, and I started getting back into reselling at that time. And that was good, but I always still had that itch, like, I'm a big Gary Vee fan and supporter. And, one thing he always talked about is like, follow your dreams, find out what your passion is and just go all in and trying to find a way to make that money. And as I was kind of bouncing around from different jobs, I was doing medical sales, and I started working at this was actually where I met my wife. My wife was a nurse there, and it was a minimally invasive spine surgery facility. And they were one of the biggest ones in the country, called Laser Spine Institute. And they were one of the first ones to start doing, like, on a national level, like minimally invasive surgeries. So people come in, get back surgeries, and you can leave the same day instead of being in the hospital for multiple days. And I would talk to all these people on the phone, and people they would say oh, I regret this, I regret that, because I can't pick up my grandkids anymore. I can't do this. And that's heartbreaking. You hear people that may be in their 40s, 50s, or in their 70s, and they have so many regrets of stuff they should have did. And it was that moment I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to be a professional wrestler. Screw it. I'm going to go to professional wrestling school. So that's when I decided. So I was doing medical sales, and I literally was training. Training twice a day. I was training early in the morning. I would get up like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. I was training with a guy who was training athletes for the combine, for like D1 sports. And then in the evenings, I was doing training to be a professional wrestler. So I did that, and did that in my 30s. Was something, not a lot of people do. And, everyone said it was stupid. Everyone said you're crazy to do that. But I had a lot of fun. And so I did that for several years. I ended up traveling around, and I wasn't the best wrestler. I would say I was probably an average wrestler, but I was really good on the microphone, and I was really good as a character and a gimmick. So I wrestled on the name The Scoundrel Raw Grimes. I was a bad guy, what they call heel in wrestling. And I would just go out there, and man, I would just be able to get such a reaction from the crowd. We always say in wrestling, if the crowd's booing you or cheering you, you're doing something right. It's when the crowd's not making a sound, it means that you lost them. You don't have their attention. So that's something that's really stuck with me when it comes to YouTube and my reselling business, because if people aren't paying attention, or if you're not doing something there, people aren't talking, then you're doing something wrong. And so I started doing that, started wrestling in the Southeast, like Florida, Georgia. And then I just started picking up traveling. So I started winning a couple, became the champion in Florida, champion in Georgia. I was wrestling through Louisiana. Probably like 6 months into that, I got a tryout for New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I flew out to California, which is like the WWE of Japan. I did a week-long camp with them there. And then the WWE reached out, and I started doing some extra work for NXT down in Orlando, a couple shows there. But it was, it was really cool experience. Got this, walk in and see my first day there, see like Triple H or Shawn Michaels, or these guys I grew up watching as a kid that are just backstage there. So it was a really cool, surreal moment there. And I wish I would have started sooner, but unfortunately, just like anything else, during COVID, that one of the first things that got shut down was events and activities. And which sucks is because WrestleMania was coming to Tampa. I was supposed to be an extra at WrestleMania. So it was like, imagine being an extra at the Super Bowl, like just being being part of it would have been awesome. And then during WrestleMania weekend, they do a bunch of wrestling events. you know, like leading up to there, and that's where they showcase a lot of like the up and coming talent or like former wrestlers going to be on these big cards. So I was booked that whole weekend on a bunch of cards in Tampa. So it would have made, not saying something would have came from it, but would have given me an opportunity to showcase what I can do to a larger audience. And unfortunately, all those got canceled. WrestleMania in Tampa got canceled, and so then once it came back, I wrestled a couple more shows and stuff like that, but I started really doubling down on picking a lot because during the pandemic, I was specializing in video games and pop culture stuff, and all that stuff that I had stockpiled had just doubled, tripled in value. So I started really making some good money there. And while everyone was losing their jobs during the pandemic and stuff like that, I was doing medical sales and I was working in the medical industry. So I was still being able to, I still had a job and got stuff going. Oh, I got laid off there for a while, so I just went all in. But everyone didn't know, what they were going to do with their job. So people started selling off their collections. Well, when everyone's selling, that's the first time to buy. And so I just started buying as many collections as I possibly can. And I was just double, tripling my money. And I did really, really good during the pandemic area. And so when I decided at that point in time, I was going to, when pandemic ended, I was going to go back to wrestling. And what I would be doing when I was traveling for all these wrestling shows, I would go leave 3, 4, 5 hours away. 3, 4, 5 hours earlier, and I would go picking along the way. So I was like, what a unique idea. Why don't I start a YouTube channel about a guy who's punching and picking his way across America? Welcome to Picking and Punching. So that's kind of how my picking and punching, that's where the name came from. And that's kind of the pathway of how that happened. So, you asked me for like interesting stories on there. I got to meet a lot of wrestlers and stuff like that. I've wrestled in steel cage matches. I've fallen through tables. I'll tell you, very interesting. When me and my wife started dating, I wrestled in a fans bring the weapons match to an arena. And we fought all over the arena, and I ended up falling through a table off the top rope that was covered in thumbtacks. Oh. And I knew my wife was the one. I would tell you this. She literally sat backstage and started pulling out like thumbtacks out of my back and the back of my head and like all this other stuff. So your adrenaline's flowing. You don't really feel it when it happens, but after it doesn't feel very nice. But yeah, so long-winded there, but there's the answer to your question there. So
well, that's pretty amazing, right? I tell you, what a unique and varied background that you have. Generally when we have guests on our show, we'll ask them like, what was your background and all of that. And no one holds a candle to your background. And it's funny because, you might say, you look to people's backgrounds and you see how it's applicable to their reselling career, because we all want to know that. And although at first glance, it might not appear that your background has any validity in reselling, it actually does, because you did point out how you've been able to use every different thing that you've learned and apply it, towards your reselling, career and your YouTube career. And it served you well.
So I would say this though to that too is my reselling actually would able me to be able to do that stuff too. So that's how it kind of goes full circle, because working a 9-to-5 job, people have a lot of restrictions. I also have a lot of restrictions, but I was able to get to the point where I was able to really, focus doing really well my job, which I was eventually going to quit my full-time job in the medical industry and do reselling full-time. Unfortunately, me and my wife were starting to build a house, and I couldn't quit because they needed to see that stated income on paper, Right. So with reselling, as you can write off a lot more things than you can, from a 9-to-5 job. So for the longest time, I was making more money reselling than I did with my actual 9-to-5 job. And, it allowed me to, when I wanted to, do these things and be able to travel more and to do stuff, even though if I was taking time off my day job, or you remember, I was also, commission based with a lot of the sales stuff I was doing. If I, took a hit at my day job, I can always make it up with the reselling stuff. So I didn't care. So I didn't, like I said, going back to my day job, I listen to all these patients that talk about how they had all these regrets. I don't want to have any regrets in my life. So that's my biggest thing. So I was able to say, what, money's money. You'll find a way to make it, and, there's more money out there. You just got to find a way to make it. So.
Sure. No doubt.
Yeah.
Now, went like going to the live show that you do with Kat. I remember, and unless I have this wrong, when Kat had lost her previous host, Bearded Thrift Machine, she had guests on. Well, she always had guests on, but I remember when you were just a guest on there, and you were just on it. That was the first time I had seen you, and every question, it was almost like you had given a script of all these questions. I mean, you were on it, and I was like, man, he would be an awesome host. And lo and behold,
yeah, it's one of those things where it's funny how things work out. So remember, I talked about how I was about to quit my job, and I wasn't really connected with anyone in the YouTube community. I started my YouTube channel, but I didn't communicate. I didn't network with anybody at that time. You know, I was still new. I didn't even, maybe a couple hundred subs or whatever I had. And the Cincinnati Picker posted something on I always give him a lot of credit for this. He posted something on Instagram, say, hey, if anyone, I want to get back to the community. If anyone wants to talk about reselling, or they want to talk about YouTube stuff, I'm set up a 15-minute call or something like that. So I literally saw that within like a minute or two posting. I put on a calendar, boom, I got it. So I scheduled my stuff for a Monday. So randomly the Friday before that Monday, I get a call from Cincinnati Picker, and I was like, hey, he's like, hey, what's up, Rod? And I was like, hey, it's like, are we supposed to talk today? He's like, oh no, it's Monday. I'll call you back. I'm like, no, you're fine, man. Let's talk. So we started talking, and I told him, the position I was in. It's like, hey, I'm looking to quit my job. I'm kind of stuck in a rut right now on my YouTube channel because I was putting out content. Originally, I started wanting to do a yard sale, reselling channel. But when I started my channel up, it was like November, December, there wasn't a lot of yard sales going on because of how cold it was. So I didn't have banked videos and stuff like that at the time, or footage. So I started buying mystery boxes, like comic book mystery boxes. And my first mystery box I bought, I hit the grand prize. So I won paid $100. I won like an $800 comic book. So obviously I was hooked at that point in time. Yeah. So I would start putting out content for comic books, and it would do really well. And then my yard sale content would go bad. And then my yard sale content would do really well, but then these comic book mystery boxes would do bad. And, John was like, the algorithm doesn't know how to push you. So if you want to focus on yard sales, then you need to double down and just do nothing but yard sales. Or if you want to do comic books, do nothing but comic books. At that point in time, like yard sale and that type of footage you want to go. So we had that conversation. So it's one of those things where you can hear stuff over and over again, but a light bulb goes off. I was like, oh, that makes total sense. And then he told me, he's like, yeah, so you really want to grow your channel, you need to start networking with other people. I'm like, oh, I would love to. Unfortunately, I'm just, getting into this. I don't know a lot of resellers. He's like, oh, you should come up to my buddy Dante, Prison of Profits, is doing an event in, I want to say South Carolina. It's a meetup. You should come out to this. And I was like, well, when is it? He's like, it's next week. And I was like, oh man. I was like, all right, well, I was like, and then, after I got the phone with him, I was like, this is a sign. Like I need to go do this, because he's supposed to call me on Monday. He called me today. We just, by dumb luck, I was like, man, let me think about this. So I called up one of my best friends. I was like, hey man, I'm going to this. You want to travel with me? And he's like, oh yeah, I'll be down. My buddy is down for a road trip. And he has a channel called Handmade and Beyond, which does Etsy consulting, and he does focus everything on Etsy. So he had that channel going already, and he's like, we were kind of both on the fence. He's like, I'll if you want to go, I'll go with you. Well, the next day I went garage selling, and I was wearing my GoPro, and someone stopped me, and it was, hey, he's like, do you do YouTube? I was like, yeah, I kind of just started. Like, oh, my buddy does it. I'm like, oh, what's your buddy's name? He's like, Dante from Prison of Profits. And I was like, okay, this is a sign now. Like, I just randomly ran into somebody in Florida that knew Dante, and I was like, I got to go to this event. So I bought tickets, me and my buddy Lloyd, we drove all the way up to South Carolina, went there. And then that's when I started meeting like the Atlanta Flippers. I met Derek. I met Katz. I met ADH Dave, who's NC Picker at the time. I met Kevin Calamo Picker. I met all these people at the event. So that was my first time I get to network with Dave, network with Kevin. I got Kat there, but I'm very good at like following up with people. And so leaving that event, it was really good. I got to meet people. I sent everyone a private message. I said, hey, thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. If there's anything I can do or help you out with in the future, please don't be afraid to reach out. It was really nice meeting you. I love to network more. And then Kat's like, hey, it's like, I need a guest. Would you like to come on my show? And I was like, okay, cool. So I just came on her show. Like you were talking about, we hit it off really well. And then literally probably like the week after I was on the show, I guess Julian said I told Kat that he was going to leave. And Kat was like, hey, he's like, you did great. I thought we got great response about it. Would you like to be my co-host? So it was just like being in the right place, the right time, and kind of, one of those things that everything happens for a reason. And then that's actually how I started my relationship with Kevin and Dave right after that as well, because Dave just moved to Florida. And he's like, hey, you live in Florida. Why don't you come over and pick with me? So I drove over to Daytona one time, went picking with him and his mom. So we did that. So I kind of built a relationship there. And then Kevin was really big into VHS at the time. And I was already grading, me and my buddy Lloyd, we were really big into collecting VHS stuff. And I was already grading VHS. So he was all about like VHS at the time. And VHS prices were going, and graded and sealed prices were going like through the roof. I mean, they were going for like 5 times more than what they sell for now. The market's really died down now. But so I talked to Kevin probably about an hour or two just about VHS stuff that. And then he invited me to come up to Virginia. He's like, hey, I would love to film a video with you and about VHS, because he was doing like the top 10, kind of like these like top 10 videos. He's like sprinkling those into his Flipper channel. And so he invited me up. We did one picking through the 100-mile sale. Me and him filmed this top 10 most expensive VHS videos. And if you go to his Flipper channel, I think the thing has like 500,000 views. It's like probably one of his biggest videos over there. And that kind of just got me kicked off in the reselling community. So I give a lot of people credit. Like if Dante didn't have the event, I probably won't be where I am. If John didn't accidentally call me the wrong time, if I didn't, if Dave didn't invite me to come pick it with him, if Kevin didn't invite me to come up and do a video, I'd be in a lot different place. So that's why this, Mike, you probably didn't know this whole backstory to this, but this is why when we talked and you're going to these meetups, I'm like, it's so important. You got to be on YouTube. You got to be doing this, because there's a lot of people like myself that didn't know about the meetups. So we had someone that had a channel or someone that could produce this or give this back to the community. That's something we're missing. So, when we talk to somebody, I'm like, Mike, you got to do this. And so that kind of goes back full circle, kind of, what you were saying earlier. But that's kind of the reason why I wanted that, because that was able to really change my life and put me in the right direction with things.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. I didn't realize that. That's some more insight into that 45-minute conversation that pretty much changed my life in terms of YouTube and all. And that's what I've been saying like all along. I mean, the meetups are fun and all of that, and you get a chance to let your hair down and hang out with people and all. But things happen at the meetups. Every person that I've talked to, that's in the reselling world, in the YouTube world, in this space, I've met people, I've done things, I've changed their whole strategies by going to a meetup and meeting people. That's why we really advocate on the channel. Obviously, it's a meetup channel for people to make the effort to get out there and do it, because in addition to some recreation and some well-deserved, downtime for your business, it really changes things. It really, I've had so many real interesting occurrences by meeting people that have changed my life in doing reselling by just going to the meetups. And that's why I'm really happy to. I'm obviously very enthusiastic about the community and about going to meetups, and that's why I'll just, as long as I can possibly stay in the space and get just one person to interact with one other person, that gives them the opportunity to be life-changing, really. Not to be dramatic about it, but it is true. It really is that things happen.
It definitely is true. It's like the little things, like, because it could be just one, like John calling me by accident the wrong day. That one little thing just kind of put things in motion for me, So you just never know. But a lot of people, it's funny, is people would comment on videos, oh, you're so lucky you find all this stuff, but like, what people don't know is it's all the hard work a lot of these resellers put behind the scenes. So what they may see is, you have to give yourself the opportunity 100%. So if you don't put yourself in position to have opportunities, yes, there's a lot of luck behind it, but at the same point in time is you have to put yourself in position to be lucky as well. A lot of people don't understand that. So doing what you're doing gives people the opportunity to get lucky or put those in a position to network and have something more come from it, which is great.
No doubt about it. Absolutely, 1,000%, Rod. I mean, like I've always been fortunate, even before I jumped into the YouTube space, and just I'm an outgoing person. I love people. I love to hang out with people, talk to people. So just by having the chats, the interactive chats, and maybe going to a meetup here and there and meeting people, it was great, and gave me a lot of opportunities. But once I jumped into it, being an active participant in YouTube, specifically in the meetup kind of arena, it just opened up. You know, I mean, I almost stopped reselling for a while after I first uh, got into my channel. I really took a hiatus from listing and sourcing and doing all that stuff for like about 6 months. All right, the excuse was I was establishing my channel, and it was all good. But my 90-day total got slashed by 50%
Yeah.
after like the first couple of months that I started doing my channel. But it's back up there now. It's back up there. I've been
That's
working hard to
so.
get it back.
I will tell you this: that happens to a lot of people that start
Yeah,
YouTube because one is it's a new shiny object, right? You're
yeah,
like,
oh
oh
yeah,
man, you're so excited about it. But also too, like as resellers, we like to build. We like the
yeah,
process, not so much the, I don't like the trophy hanging on my shelf. I like the process of getting that trophy.
right,
So
exactly.
when you're going through this, we like the hunt, not so much finding the item. So as you start building up your channel, you start doing this, like it's addicting because you're looking at your numbers. Your numbers
It
you're
is.
getting subscribers starting to go
Yeah,
up, and then like, okay, what can I do differently? And like you don't know anything, so then you're doing all the research that all the videos you're watching on reselling and all that stuff. You start focusing that on more on how to create better videos, better content.
true.
So yeah, and then you realize, okay, I'm putting in way too much time on this and I'm not getting no return because a lot of people don't realize. I think YouTubers make a ton of money. We do
No,
not make a ton of money.
the labor
And
of love.
I make a lot more money reselling than I do on YouTube. Okay. Even though I'm monetized, like all my money comes from reselling. So
Sure.
it's one of those things where you have to have a balance. And then I'm glad that you found that.
Yeah, I did. I'm loving it. I'm fortunate in that, like, I'm really not driven by money, whether it be my reselling business
Yeah.
or YouTube business. And I've often said I have no intention or interest in even getting monetized. Like my our channel is basically just to provide a service, which you're not going to charge obviously people for the service.
Yeah.
So whatever I can do to get the word out is reward enough for me. And since I'm retired and I really didn't, eBay was a hobby pretty much. YouTube was a hobby as well. So and I love doing both of them. So I can do them at my leisure. So if I want to, work hard on eBay in one particular day, work hard on my channel one particular day, it's all good. It really doesn't really matter. In other words, I don't need the income to put food on my table.
Yeah. And over time too, you start getting, just like reselling though, you get you get faster, you get more efficient on
Sure.
in your reselling. So you can list a lot more in a short amount of time. Same thing with YouTube. Like as you start doing it more and more, you get a lot better at creating thumbnails, creating edits, going through
Yeah.
the whole process, getting set up. You may still have trouble trying to get your microphone working or
That
I guess
happens.
it happens. That's a kind of gets a little delayed to have just giving you a hard time. But no, it's
So,
great though as we go. So
so good.
How do you feel like the live shows connect the community? Because we're having you on as part of our series where we talk to resellers who do regular live shows, and we understand we love meetups. I mean, Mike actually has a meetup coming up in Vegas in August, but the
yeah.
next one we're both going to is in September in East Tennessee. But not everybody can get to all the in-person meetups. So I think these live shows are important because it's a way that everybody can connect, on a regular basis. So how do you feel like they connect the community?
First and foremost, reselling is a very lonely occupation because you try to talk to your friends or family about it. They don't resell. So they get it to a point like, oh, that American Picker show or something like that. Like that's what you get a lot of times or, but it's one of those things where when people work, a lot of these people are working from home because of resellers, because they're either working out of their garage or their basement, or maybe they have a storage unit they're working out of. So, most stuff they're doing is just they're isolated at home. So having these live shows where people can find like-minded people and be able to communicate and be able to talk in the chat and have different guests on And a lot of times what I like to do during our live shows, like, hey, put in the chat where you guys are located. And people put in all the states of that. And we were able to connect other resellers that may not be able to do that. And there's a lot of tools out there that people just don't know. Like I didn't know about the meetup without John telling me about the meetup. So if it was for John Cincinnati Picker, I would not have been able to go to the meetup. That's why, that meetup, for what you guys are doing is very important. But now that you guys have a live show, you guys are, talking to other live sellers on here, it's great because one is you get different perspective from people. You can ask questions live. I mean, we can all watch videos, but then you got to search through the video to kind of get the answer because depending on, how it is. But I think the live shows are great, especially when people are like the Q&A we do in Cat Show. All it is Q&A. Sometimes it will be repetitive. I will tell that because we have a lot of new people that are getting into reselling that come on there. So they ask, we answer a lot of the same questions, but when we bring different guests on, those same questions we answer get answered differently because everyone has a different approach. And even during the live shows, I learned so much from the other resellers on there because it could be just these little tweaks that I do to my business, which can help me save so much time, make me more faster and efficient. So those things are really great for the business standpoint, but also too for the social aspect of it. You feel like you have someone that's like-minded like you. So you don't feel alone because you can go on there, you can chat with people, and you have something to look forward to on a weekly basis. So I know a lot of people in there always tell us like, oh man, I can't wait for this. I wish it was longer. I'm glad that you guys do this on a weekly basis because that's their outlet. That's the only way they can communicate or talk about reselling with other people. So, which is good. It's a good way to help people just bring the community together once again.
And you guys are really nice about having all kinds of different resellers on. Like Mike and I were on there, and I mean, I will say you guys were so kind, but I was very nervous. And you guys know I haven't sold on eBay for about 3 or 4 years. I just sell on Poshmark and Mercari and occasionally Facebook Marketplace. But Rod knew that if it was a current eBay question, I really couldn't field it. So he just kind of right after oh well, who you were in the hot seat, right?
I was in the hot seat, yes.
Yeah. So right after Mike
rescue you.
Rod didn't make me have some weird random silence like duh. I don't, he just, so you were very gracious about that. So
yeah.
You goes on there. Don't worry. It's really fine.
But also too, I mean, think about it. If you just focus on Poshmark or Mercari, then you're going to be an expert on Poshmark and Mercari. So I sell eBay Prime. That's my main platform I sell on. I do Dibbit. I do all the Dibbit, marketplaces, whatnot, live selling. I do cross list to Mercari or Posh, but it's not my priority. So having someone like you on there, that is your priority. That's great because now you may be able to answer a question I can't answer. I may be able to just scratch the surface, but now you can do a deep dive in it, which is great. Also, too, is when I talked about working in like wrestling and the fight company, dead air is the one thing that kills an arena. So one thing that I learned a long time ago is like you have a vibe in that arena. People are pumped and happy. Like you can't have dead air. So I try to make sure during our podcast that we don't. I mean, the stuff that you can't avoid, but if knowing that you weren't going to answer, just kind of flow it right through, so we don't have dead air too. That's really important.
Yeah, I definitely appreciated that. I didn't have to just be all awkward.
Yeah, that was a great experience. I mean, we're both a little bit nervous, to be honest, behind the scenes, to let to be on with Cat and Rod. I mean, we really felt that we had arrived when we were invited to come on your show, but you really made it so comfortable that after that we could fight the world now. And we've really been on with the best, and we kind of lived to talk about it, and it wasn't all that bad at all. We're really very grateful that you guys had us on.
I'm sure I always tell people it's the anticipation of, what you guys know. You guys both, we wouldn't have you on the show if we didn't think that you guys were knowledgeable in what you do.
Right.
And like when I used to do professional wrestling, like you can prepare as long as you want for a match of that. But when you get in the ring, like whatever you know. If you don't know it, you don't know it. If you can't do it, you can't do it, So, once you get in there though, and you start doing it, after the first 5-10 minutes, all those nervous jitters you had kind of go away because you're just getting the flow of things because you are knowledgeable, but you just had that fear leading up to that you're going to mess up or something like that. But once you get I'm sure after like the first 10-15 minutes, you guys probably felt comfortable and it was like, and then those 2 hours just blew right by.
It really did. Went quick, right, Mary?
Oh yeah,
It
it
was
did.
surprised it was over.
And you could see, see some of the questions. That was part of the thing. You don't know what people are asking. So that's why, I mean, I tell you, I remember to this day seeing you that first time on her channel, and I was just so impressed. It's like these people are asking these questions in real time, and he is on it.
Yeah, on
you
the
were
fly, right?
you were on it.
Well, I was an early adapter on eBay, so I actually started selling on eBay in 1999. So, when a lot of other people were just, not even on eBay, like I was in high school, like I was literally going and flipping things in high school on eBay, which was great. And then, I'll tell you some crazy stories back in the day. The early stages of eBay, I would literally get cash in the mail. So I remember someone from England bought a bunch of wrestling figures because a lot of people you can only get those items in the US. So I would have a lot of international buyers when I first started out. And I remember one day getting this envelope, and it was this real thick. And I was like, what the heck is it? And I pulled out, and it had aluminum foil, and it was wrapped. And I opened up, it was just a bunch of 20s in there. And I was like, man, my parents probably think I'm a drug dealer right now. That I'm just getting wads of cash, but I wasn't prepared for that, or I would get checks or money orders in the mail. And then you had to wait 7 days for the check to clear before you can ship out the items. And there was no buy it nows when I first started. It was all auction. So I would just go on there and find a lot of good items. And there's a lot of tricks back in the day where they didn't have the autocorrect on there. So I would misspell all kind of different words and find the best bargains ever on eBay. And then, yes, because they didn't have the autocorrect feature, or they didn't have the search where it automatically, didn't automatically correct it, where it would pull up other similar listings. So if you didn't spell something correctly, you can find a lot of items on eBay that were misspelled that you can get really good deals with in the very beginning. And then they started, I didn't buy it now. And then eventually it evolved to buy it now. And then we had PayPal. And I remember just I would handwrite all my things. I would go to the post office, and you had to get the tracking, the track you order. You had to get a sticker and put it on there, and then they rip it off and scan it. So I would go there with these yellow stickers on all my packages. I would show up to I lived in a small town, 7,000 people. And literally, I would show up to the post office with 50 packages, and I could just see the pissed off people behind me. I'm just walking in these banks, because back then they had to literally put a tracking on there, scan it, and go through this whole thing where you scan, boom, you're done, or you can just drop off your packages and go. That wasn't the case back then. They had to go through every single package and go through the process. So, yeah, eBay's come a long way,
See, it was around 99 when I listed my first item, and it was a pack of 4 NASCAR TV guides. And of course, it was auctions. I put it up for $1. Nobody bid. Well, this is dumb. This isn't going to work. And I just, I never did it again until, I'm going to say 2011 or 12.
Wow, you took 10 years.
Yeah. So it was a lot. I mean, yeah, it was a long time before I did it again. Well, because it obviously didn't work. My one thing didn't sell.
So I'm curious, what triggered you to come back then after that?
Well, I moved from a house to a 1-story apartment with a single car garage, and I just had too much stuff. So I was selling my own stuff. I didn't start. That was around 2011, and then I didn't start reselling till 2018. But so I was probably on eBay for about 10 years before I decided, 10 or 11 years before I decided just to do Poshmark and Mercari. But it was just, as a lot of us did, we're just selling our own stuff because we no longer had room for it. So,
yeah, well, here's something a lot of people don't know. I'll tell you this. I talked about this on Cat Show once or twice, but so I started a bobblehead business at one point in time. So when I first started reselling, when I moved to Florida, I would go to garage sales, and I was finding a lot of bobbleheads, because what I didn't realize is all the minor league baseball teams within from the Tampa Bay area, within an hour or two, I can get to 10 different minor league stadiums.
Right.
And then they would do Tampa has the Yankees and Clearwater has the Phillies. So that's also their spring training. So what was happening is the Yankees would do a bobblehead giveaway, only 500 or 1,000. Well, all the fans are up in New York. So what would happen is I would go to the game. I'd pay $5 for a ticket. I would get a bobblehead, and then I'd put it on eBay. I'd get 40, 50 bucks. I'm like, oh, this is great. So I would go to the game. I would buy, I was like, hey, it took all my friends to the game. I'm like, I'll buy you guys all tickets to go. Just give me your bobblehead. So I was doing that. And then I was starting to pick up a ton of them. And then what I was realizing is there's only so much inventory. I need to get, I'm going to get more bobbleheads. Like, this is very profitable. And at this point in time, I remember looking at eBay, and there's 25,000 listings for bobbleheads. And I was like, okay, I got to try to, how can I buy wholesale? So I incorporated, got my tax ID number, and was able to contact a couple companies. And I ended up signing a wholesaling deal with Funko. And then, because they were doing Wacky Wobblers at the time, and then Forever Collectibles. And so I started buying inventory for them. I probably spent like, I don't know, $1,000, $2,000, which I didn't have. I was doing a credit card just to get some inventory, because I was like, oh, if I get it, I quick sell it. What I didn't realize is the tough lesson I learned is me, small guy over here, buying 10 or 20 bobbleheads at a time, can't compete with Dick's Sporting Goods, who's buying 1,000 bobbleheads. So even if I did get them at a wholesale pricing, they were getting it at a cheaper wholesale pricing. So I just ran into the problem, like, man, I can't produce these, I can't buy enough bobbleheads wholesale to do this. So I got the idea. I was like, you know what? I'm going to create my own bobbleheads. So I started reaching out to like Major League Baseball, to NFL, college stuff. Only to realize that got shut down real fast, because they wanted $100,000 just to get the licensing to be able to create. That doesn't royalties like everything else. Like, so that's just like, yeah, pay us $100,000. Okay, now you can create this, but we have to approve everything, go like this. So I'm like, okay, well, that went out the window. So then I had the bright idea. I was like, okay, well, Forever Collectibles has a deal with like Major League Baseball, college, NFL, and they're producing bobbleheads. I reached out to them and said, hey, can you guys produce me an exclusive bobblehead for my business? And they said, absolutely. You just have to order 144 at a time. I said, awesome. So then I sent them a couple of different, designs, like a couple of different things I want to do. And then that was a whole nother thing, because they would create a mock-up. They would send it to the Players Association. Players Association had to approve it. And then they would send it to China. China would make a prototype. And then once I approved the prototype, they would start producing them. So start to finish, that process was like 3 to 6 months, to do that. So I started making bobbleheads. They were exclusive to my business. And I was like, okay, well, if I had the home shopping network, kind of thought process, where even if I get 144 bobbleheads, if I put these up at like $40-$50 a piece, then it costs me like $10 or $12 that they're going to produce. And because Forever Collectibles is taking their percentage, and then they're charging me a markup fee as a middleman, which is fine, but I didn't care because I had the exclusive bobbleheads. No one else had these. So I started doing that, and that was okay at first, but I learned a lot of trouble along the way, because I would get a player that was like an up and coming player who was doing great, and then he'll go in a slump. So then his stuff would do really bad. So I get stuck with those. Or I would produce bobbleheads of a player, and then they would get traded at the end of the season. So then I had like 144 bobbleheads of a player that just got traded, and I was like, which I get stuck with. I did that.
Kind of like cards, right? Same mentality.
Like cards, yeah, but a little bit different. These bobbleheads took up half my garage, and they were in boxes, and were heavy, and I had to move them. And then also too, what was happening is I would get these cases, but then like if I had 144 bobbleheads, but I'm more than, say if I get 5 or 6 custom bobbleheads made, I'm getting 1,000 bobbleheads, or showing up to my house. So I wouldn't open up every single box to go through, because you get 6 in the case. So what I was realizing, like hard lesson to learn, 6 months down the line, I would open my case, and half the bobbleheads would be cracked or damaged because they got damage in shipping. So then I would have to eat that cost. Like, so I learned a lot of lessons about like manufacturing things and business wise. And it got to the point I produced a custom one for the Miami Heat. It was like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, after they won like their second championships. They're all holding like the championship trophies. And there used to be a TV show on ESPN called Mike and Mike.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yes, okay. So on their desk, they used to have a bunch of bobbleheads and stuff like that. So during the playoffs one time, I remember turning on the thing, and they literally bought my custom bobblehead. It was sitting on their desk. So that was a really cool moment. So the triple threat one. So they bought that, had that on there. So that was cool. So I produced those back in like, let's say around 2009, 2011, some of that ballpark. Every once in a blue moon, they'll pop up at like on like eBay or something like that, which is kind of cool. But it got to the point now where other people started making custom bobbleheads to them. And then by the time I decided to walk away from that business, there was 100,000. Remember earlier when I first started, it was 25,000 listings on eBay. When I walked away, I decided to stop making bobbleheads. There's over 100,000 listings on eBay.
Big
So
business,
yeah, so the market kind of went through the roof, and then it just got oversaturated. And I didn't have the store. I didn't have a warehouse. Didn't have the storage space. I had to put out all this money. And then what also happened though is so getting back to what I said, a lot of people don't know this. I got kicked off eBay at this time, right around this time. So I had like $15,000 worth of bobbleheads.
Wow.
And I got kicked off eBay because there's a company. I won't throw the company on the bus, but they're still around to this day. But they make T-shirts that are the colors of sports teams. They look identical to like the colors of the uniforms like the people wear, but they'll have sayings. So let's just say New York, it'd be like New York's, instead of saying Giants, it would be all blue, like Giants colors, like this kind of blue, but it would say like New York's a football town or a drinking town with a football problem or something like that. So like they would make all kind of like custom shirts, or they'll say like, I root for two teams, the Giants and whoever's playing the Cowboys this week, but they would never actually like put the logos and stuff on. So it's a way they could produce these shirts, but it's a workaround with it.
They got around it. Yeah.
They got around it. So how they got me kicked off eBay. Well, I got myself kicked off eBay. I won't blame them for this, but they're partially to blame because I started doing drop shipping. So when I started moving away from the bobbleheads, I went into drop shipping. So they were a local company in Tampa. I used to love their shirts. I used to buy their shirts. They used to come to all the tailgates, like the USF football game, the Bucks game, stuff like that, and they would give out free shirts for advertising. And that's how I saw them. And then they had a deal with Publix. They were putting their shirts in Publix. And I had a deal with them where I didn't have to buy the inventory. So it was a lot more appealing to me. They would just send me a list of all the shirts they had, and they can custom make shirts at any point in time. So, and then all the graphics. So I would just take the shirts, list them on eBay. I think I paid like $10 wholesale for them, but I didn't have to keep the inventory. I just had to, I put them up for like $20 a piece, whatever on eBay. So people would buy them, and then I would just print off a shipping label, and I would just email them the shipping label, and then they would ship it off. No big deal. And I was doing great. Like at first I started making a couple $100. I made a couple $1,000 a month. I was like, this is great. Well, when Christmas time rolled around, I probably had about 30 or 40 orders they could not fulfill, even though like people placed their orders like probably a week before Christmas. So they went out as soon as possible. So I would send them the labels, and like day one, day two would go by. I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, oh, we're getting it. We're just really backed up. I said, okay. And then they'll send me a message. Hey, sorry, we ran out of stock on these. We're not going to print any of these till like a week or two. So I would have to reach out to these people and like, hey, unfortunately, we're out of stock. Like, what do you mean you're out of stock? You have it listed on eBay. So then I took the heat for it. Give me a bunch of negative feedback on eBay, and I fell below the 98% on eBay. And then eBay sent me a warning and said, hey, if you don't get this up, you're gonna get kicked off. Well, as that happened, I got a bunch of more like complaints because I had to refund like 40 like a ton of different things. So make a long story short, my eBay suspended my account and got kicked off eBay. And I didn't sell on eBay for like a year or two because of that. Well, what sucked is because I get stuck with all these bobbleheads. So I had like 10 to, so at that point in time, Amazon was like kind of just starting to like take off to sell other things other than books. And I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was like trying to sell them on like Craigslist at the time, locally. So I got myself in some financial issues there. I got myself some trouble there. And then eBay kept reaching out to me like probably like 6 months or a year after I got kicked off. But it wasn't like eBay directly. It was like someone from like LinkedIn who worked for eBay. And I thought, you get those emails that look like a scam email.
Yeah.
So I kept blowing off because I thought it was a scam email, but it kept coming from the same person like every month or every other month. And I was like, and then one day I just like, you know what, I'm going to look into this. And then I started digging a little bit more. And then I searched LinkedIn. I found the person. They actually worked for eBay. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is actually legit. So we ended up setting a call. And because I was a 6-figure seller on eBay at that time. So they wanted to recruit me back, kind of figure out what was going on. So I just explained the situation, and they approved me to come back selling on eBay. And I had restricted limits, and then I built that back up to what I am now. And so, yeah, but interesting story. So don't do drop shipping, people. All right. More of the story. You get yourself in a lot of trouble. So
get rid of all of those bobbleheads. How many you still got in your garage?
So it's funny you said that. So I right now I have 2 storage facilities. I have a whole bunch of merchandise here, and as I had 3, I was dwindling down. I got down to 2, and as I was moving to all the stuff to my one storage, in the back of it, I found like probably 10 or 12 cases of bobbleheads. So I was like, you know what? screw it. So about probably 2 years ago, I took them to a local. Yeah, I just had them sitting around for like 10 years. The rest of these bobbleheads, because I took them to the local auction house. I'm like, I don't even care what they sell for. I just want them gone. That part of my life is over. So the funny thing is like they all sold, and then someone bought they put them by case. They probably got them for $20-$30, whatever they paid for. I mean, I lost money on them. I mean, at the day, I probably didn't lose money because I made my money back, so it was all just excess inventory. But I would go to. Yeah, so in Florida, the Webster Flea Market is the biggest flea market in Florida. So I remember like going there and I'm like walking around, and then I see my bobbleheads on tables. So like people are selling my bobbleheads there, which is like a surreal moment. And then probably the funniest thing is then probably like 6 months after I put those up for auction, I went back to the same auction house, which is now out of business. And they had like 3 of my cases. So the person who bought them probably couldn't sell them at the flea market. So they took them back to the auction house and put them up for auction then. So they're out there someplace. But don't get me wrong. I had some really cool ones that sold well. And I did a mascot for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And when they won the national championship, well, a dealership reached out to me in Alabama. They're working for, I think it was, I want to say Nissan. They reached out to me. They wanted to buy a bunch because they were going to put all these bobbleheads in the cars, and they were filming a commercial for the SEC, and they wanted to use my bobbleheads in the commercial with the car and stuff like that. So they ended up buying, I'm going to say 6 cases or 8 cases of these. I ended up shipping to them. Something happened with the shipping, and they returned them back to me. And then like I was like, hey, I'm sorry. It's like there's a mess up with the FedEx or something messed up. They returned them back to me. And then the people were like, no, we want them. So I had to overnight all of them back to them, which they paid for. They paid for the overnight too. It wasn't my fault in the shipping issue or anything like that, but they got all of them. They filmed the commercial, and then they ended up never using it the commercial because they filmed like a couple different commercials, but they didn't work out. I guess it did, in their mind what they had put down for the kind of like how they want the commercial to be with the bobblehead and stuff like that didn't really come out well, execute well when they went to film it and do it. So they ended up scrapping the idea. But yeah, just weird. One of those weird things, that just never really came through. So,
but they kept the bobbleheads.
Yeah, they kept all the bobbleheads. Yeah, I sold all those. So, but yeah, reselling's a weird thing, man. Especially when you get to like, we start doing stuff like TV, or you start doing stuff with like entertainment wise. There's so much money that they spend on stuff that just never comes to light or never gets used.
Never comes to fruition.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the reselling community that have been reached out by like TV companies and other stuff that they want to do like shows and stuff like that, but just nothing's ever really came from it. So yeah, throughout the years. But
we're at about the hour mark, and I want to kind of wrap it up in a minute or so because we got to get Mary back to work. She's on a lunch hour right now. I just had one question. Kind of a follow-up question, similar questions to one that Mary had posed, but a little different light. She had mentioned about the impact of how live streams and all of that impacts your business and all. Now, there's a relatively new phenomenon in our industry called live selling, which kind of creates a community amongst your buyers as well. So give us a little insight into how you feel that's the live aspect of live selling will enhance your business.
So I wouldn't say it's new. I mean, people have been live selling for many years. Yeah, more popular. Because I mean, QVC, or the Home Shopping Network, were the original who did that. In the growing up, that's what we learned about live selling.
Sure.
And I would say live selling has a huge potential here in the U.S. So believe it or not, only like 6 to 10%, some in that ballpark of the U.S. actually is involved in some type of live selling. Or if you look at like China, they have, I think, like 50% of people in China are a part of live selling one way or another. So so there's a lot of growth there. I mean, you can see the growth of Whatnot and what they have done. I always say this. I was so eBay on the bus when I say this. Sorry if they're going to eventually sponsor you, but not giving. I love eBay to death, but at the end of the day, like eBay's so antiquated with their stuff. Like eBay could have did so much more with live selling. Sure. I mean, they're still doing. I mean, they've been in a beta program for over 2 years now. So when I spoke at the List Perfect event, I was there with the VP of eBay, and we get to sign up right at that point in time to do live selling, and they're still they still haven't rolled it out to everybody, So it's been a while. Yeah. But they could have crushed Whatnot and these other selling platforms. Now I'm glad they didn't, because that gives us more alternative to sell stuff on. But I think live selling is the future. I think, you know, if people, a lot of people don't like the live selling aspect and they want to push it to the side. Live selling is here to stay.
It is.
It's going to come to a point where it's going to be more of a hybrid business model. You can still have all your static listings and stuff like that, but just the way I source is completely changed my business, because now all those items that were like really cool, but it can only get me $3, $5, you know, $8, I left behind at garage sales because it wasn't worth my time or effort. But if I'm holding this up and I'm selling an item every minute or every 30 seconds, like I can sell stuff for, I pay for $1 and sell it for $4, $5, but I'm doing that every single minute. You know, that's a lot different.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
if you do, like I sold Disney pins on whatnot, like literally just selling, easy to ship, easy to store. They pick which ones they want, and I was selling those, and I did really well. But it's a game changer, and a lot of people want to get stuck in their ways, which I understand. But you guys, I would say the biggest piece of advice I give to people, one is treat it like social media. Don't treat it like live selling. What you guys like watching on social media will get you to stop, will get you entertained. People don't want dead air. People want you to interact with them. So make sure you're paying attention to the chat. People want to be entertained. People like, you know, the mystery of what you're going to pull up next. They like your personality. So the reason why people like watching YouTube and other stuff are the things that you like watching on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or YouTube is what's going to entertain your audience. So I think it's going to move to more of a hybrid model where it's 70% entertainment, 30% live selling. You know, you're starting to see that. You're starting to see a crossover where a lot of celebrities are starting to come over and, you know, do shows or help companies do products or try to roll stuff out. So I think it's just it's taking baby steps right now. We have not seen the power of live selling in the US. So you're starting to see that roll out. I would not be surprised if YouTube rolls out in the near future some type of live selling on YouTube, because they already have one of the biggest markets out there.
The big audience.
Yeah. I mean, TikTok has TikTok Shop where you can go live on TikTok. But I mean, how many times a lot of resellers on YouTube used to do claim sale shows where they would show the item on camera. People say, "Oh, I want to buy that." They put down in the comments, "Hey, I'll buy that for X amount of dollars," and then they would put their email. You would have to send them an invoice and email, and then you would ship it out. So now actually having a payment processor, have all that stuff built into like an app, like on Dibbit or on whatnot, or on TikTok, you know, allows you to have those live selling shops. Absolute game changer. So it's here to stay. It's a good way for you to connect in your audience. It's a good way for people that do build an audience to create I guess you can say a workflow or a funnel, a sales funnel where you can actually, you have your audience and then your audience, let's see what they like. Hey, I'm going live here. They come follow you over there. So now you have that sales funnel that goes right into that. So there's a good way to combine the two and work that together. It's a good way just to move inventory super fast, especially if you're in a bind, if you have a family emergency, you need to clear out, you just need to move stuff super fast. It's a good way to get cash flow real fast for your business. So I think it's a game changer.
Sales. Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have anything coming up with your live shows that in particular that you'd like to mention?
Yes, on August 13th, I've been very blessed and very lucky with this. I'm actually going to be partnered up with Gary V, and we're going to be doing a live show on Dibbit cards. He launched a product called V Friends, and me and him are going to be streaming together, do a box break, which if you guys aren't familiar with a box break, we'll auction off a pack of cards on camera, and then we'll open the pack of cards on camera, and you get whatever in those cards, so which is super cool. So he'll come on there, answer questions, help educate the audience. So I'm very fortunate to do that. And just come check out Dibbit and Dibbit cards and Dibbit threads. You know, we're building something special over there. You know, Kevin, Commonwealth Picker, ADH Dave, Carrie American Arbitrage Cards. You get Tim over the years. You have a whole list of people on there that have really, the guys from the Reselling Information Network are all helping out over there too. Like, it's a great community. So I would highly recommend doing that. And we help other people that are reselling too. If you're afraid you're not going to have a following, stuff like that, it's a good way to get over there and build a community and another way to connect.
Cool, very cool. And I, leave it to you to make that connection with Gary V. Now you're gonna have to give a little influence to Gary to get him to show up on Trash to Cash because I know that they had invited him, but Gary backed out and they didn't put it together yet. So now that you're a friend with Gary, you can maybe make that happen.
Yeah, I don't want to say I don't know if Gary didn't back out. They were still working. Gary,
Yeah,
so we were
yeah.
actually scheduled to be with Gary actually yesterday, and it got rescheduled due to his travel restrictions. Not restrictions, due to travel. Gary's a very, very busy man. We're just a minor, we're just a little fly on the wall compared to what Gary's doing in the big scheme of things. But it's been a surreal time, and like I said, I was the biggest piece of advice to give to people is take chances, man. Shoot your shot.
Yeah.
Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. If you don't take chances, you never know what your potential possibilities would be. So
Absolutely, that is such good advice. I really agree with that wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
So, all right. Like I said, thank you. Let's wrap it up now. I actually I could sit and talk with you for an hour.
Seriously.
But I just want to kind of be mindful of everyone else's time and all. Just want to make a little advertising, right? We have a couple of events coming up. When you're going to be with Gary V, that's when eBay Open is happening that same day, the 12th to 14th. So I'll be in Vegas that week and actually a week before and a week after. So the day after the eBay Open, which ends on the 15th, I am hosting in conjunction with John from Flipping Ain't Easy a small little meetup. And if anyone's interested, go on our Facebook channel and just sign up. It's a free event. It's basically going to be just dinner on Friday night, and I think we're going to go to Atomic Golf on Saturday, and we're going to do a little thrifting Friday during the day and Saturday during the day. A free event, as I said, but we just to ask that you fill in the registration form just so we can get a head count. We'll know how many people to expect to make reservations for the restaurant. And then coming up the following month, we have Mary and I have worked with our buddies at the Resale Locker Room to put together a meetup, which looks like it's going to turn out to be a pretty nice event. East Tennessee meetup, September 26th, 27th, and 28th. And again, you can go on our Facebook page. You can go on the Reseller Locker Room Facebook page to get information and to sign up. That's another free event. But again, just we're requiring that you just sign up so we can get a head count to make the appropriate arrangements with the swag bags and the reservations and all the different events. So hopefully you can make one or both of those, and they're just meetups. And if not, one thing that I do as a service to the community is, and talking about all these live streams. There will be a live stream from Las Vegas meetup, and we're going to do a live stream from the East Tennessee meetup as well, so that for those people who weren't able to actually get on a plane or get in a car and show up to the events, you can kind of become part of it by just turning on the YouTube channel and interacting in our interactive chat and get a chance to hang out as if you were there. So hopefully you can make it. If not, join us in the live streams as well.
Highly recommend you guys join these live events if possible. That's the best way. They can be life changing.
Yeah, definitely. And if you can't, like I said, you can get overcome a little bit of that FOMO you might have by just at least coming into the live. I mean, you can check the replay as well on all these live streams, but it's a lot more fun if you're actually there and you can kind of hang out with everyone at the event. So, all right, Mary, you have anything else to say? You've been a little quiet tonight, but no.
Well, I can't say anything more interesting than what Ron has to say.
This is true.
I would like you to shout out your live show on Tuesday nights, and then tell us where we can find you for sure before we wrap up.
Yeah, so I'm live with Kat from the Nurse Flipper every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We go live for 2 hours and we answer questions. You can find me every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. on the No Bangers Sports Card Podcast. American Arbitrage. There we go. It's been a long day. Yeah. So Carry American Arbitrage Cards and Tim Over the Year Sports. We do we do a pre-recorded podcast. We drop every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. You can find us on Spotify. And then you can go check out, if you want to learn about cards. If you want to follow my journey in the card thing, I am at Picking, Punching Cards. You can find me on YouTube as Picking and Punching for my garage sale content. And then my behind the scenes stuff, I do flipping and punching, which is kind of dormant at the moment, but it will be back up and running here in the near future. So
Awesome.
Very
Thank
good. Thank you, sir.
you.
Thank you so much.
appreciate you guys having me on. It's been a blast.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on, and appreciate you taking the time out. I know you're busy, but you're a good guy, Rod. I really love you, man.
Don't tell
And,
anyone you're going to ruin my street credit, right?
well, the funny thing is, like, your persona, the scoundrel, your real rogue and everything. When I heard that the first time, I says, "Wow, to really know this guy, that's so untrue." But it was just your stage image, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, when I
So
play the character of the bad guy. So
somebody's got to do it, right?
yep.
All right. So you're running the show there, Rod. It's your stream, so I guess you'll have to
We'll end it right here
close
then.
that.
All right.
Thank you.